भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम् हृदयपुरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् अहम् साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं मृण्मयवत् जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न कस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तत् भावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः ओहं भावयुत कुतो वरधिय दृष्टात्मनिष्टात्मना सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं. Namo Ramana. In this, the Thursday Satsang from Ramanacentre Center for Learning, it has been our practice to read 2 verses from Guruvachaka Kovai, the work by Muruganar Swamigal. Each verse reading will be followed by a short meditation on its meaning, and that shall be followed by a 10 minutes practice of Atmavicharam. After these 2 segments of verse reading, meditation on meaning, and the practice of self-enquiry are completed, today there will be summing up remarks by Dileep Simha, and that shall be followed by the offering of Sri Ramana. The chanting shall be online by Vaibhavji and Pratnama, and the floral offerings shall be from right here by Sri Manjunathji. We begin the satsang with the first verse selected for us, verse number 392. Verse number 392, we find in this segment, investigation into truth, and the subsegment is Atmavichara. Verse 392, The subsegment is Atma Vichara. In the tranquility that has arisen when the vacillations of the mind have ended through the Manolaya, temporary suspension of the mind, which is obtained by restraining the breath in the chest. Realize the limitation-free being consciousness by keenly inquiring in the heart with the consciousness that instead of splitting into 5 sense perceptions, has become one. Bhagavan is talking about self-enquiry with the support of breath observation. In the tranquility that has arisen when the vacillations of the mind have ended through the Manolaya, temporary suspension of the breath, temporary suspension of the mind, which is obtained by restraining breath in the chest. So by observing and restraining the breath in the chest, the mind also is tranquil, is relatively tranquil. How so? Because when the breath is restrained, what happens is only with the breath power are the senses driven outward, and only with the breath variation we get variation in emotions. So when the sensory movement and the emotional content in us is very strong, it will be difficult, it will appear difficult to do self-enquiry. Actually, self-enquiry should be possible at all times, because there is not a time when you are not there. But because those senses, the strength of the senses and the strength of the emotions appear to carry our attention so strongly outward, it may appear to be very difficult to do self-enquiry at that time. So what we can do at that time is restrain the breath. And Bhagavan's method of restraining the breath is just observing it. The Ishvara Shakti, which is common to all beings, has allowed the breath to be in a particular way within us. Just observe that. Then as far as the breath is concerned, we are surrendering to God's will. Therefore, the related thoughts, the sensory thoughts and the emotional thoughts will quieten down. We may not be able to take the abstract thoughts to the source, but they are not causing these vacillations, these heavy, strong vacillations. So first, by breath observation, there is a mano laya, because the senses-based thoughts and emotions-based thoughts have been primarily quelled. But what we should do with that? As Bhagavan says in Upadesha Saram, Bhagavan says, Laya Vinashane Ubhaya Rodane Layagatam Punar Bhavati Nomrutam. Laya Vinashane Ubhaya Rodane. In the restraint of the mind, there appears to be two different phases. There, where it is having a Mano Laya and Mano Nasha. Laya Vinashane Ubhaya Rodane. In controlling the mind, there seems to be these two phases. But so far as it is in Laya, suppose we are financially very, very strongly dependent on the world and dependent on physical health. Let us say we are going through a phase where the finances are all right and physical health is all right. That is a Manolaya kind of state. You will mistake it for happiness, but it is a Manolaya because those worries which are predominant in our day-to-day sensory activities have been taken care of by whatever, and therefore we are in a Manolaya sthiti as far as those are concerned. Even there, what the intelligent person should do? one should start self-enquiry. When one is not disturbed by lack of things and one is having a laya sthiti, one should start, who am I at that time itself. Even more deeper laya is got by observing the breath. When you observe the breath, the whole sensory movement which is turned outward, and Bhagavan, in the last sentence here, what happens is, the being consciousness, by keenly inquiring in the heart, with the consciousness that instead of splitting into 5 sense perceptions, has become one. So what happens when you observe the breath? What consciousness was going out through the 5 different jnanendriyas, it was going out seeking which is a good thing for me to acquire and which is a bad thing for me to keep away from. This information the jnanendriyas are constantly seeking, and the consciousness from within is splitting into these 5 zones and going out and seeing the Panchabhuta Loka. Whereas in breath observation, all of them are gathered inward, unified and taken to the heart. So that is what is described here. Now with that manolaya sthiti, that calmness, we should remember that in the case of Parani Swami, when Bhagavan was restraining the jiva in the heart in his last moments, this happens before Amma's Mahasamadhi, before Amma's Nirvana. So it is prior to 1922. I am not sure which year. It is a phase where the shifting is taking place between Virupaksha and Skandashramam, because Parani Swami is still in Virupaksha cave, and the whole team has moved to Skandashramam. Bhagavan comes down when Parani Swami is in his last illness, and he keeps his hands on the head and the chest. And Bhagavan says, when the jiva, the I am the body thought, finally gets settled into the Paramatma or the Atma, there is a chiming kind of, the bell chiming kind of sound or feeling that is felt by the jnani who is keeping the hands. And as soon as that kind of reverberation was coming from inside, Bhagavan says, like a scientist, he says, I felt that Parani Swami has entered the self. So I took off my hands. However, Parani Swami had not abided in the self. He came out through the eyes and his jiva passed through the eyes. The eyes are the higher jnanendriyas. So Bhagavan says he must have taken a higher birth than what he was here, in the sense that the sadhanas could have been easily pursued in that birth is what we can take. But when what we can take from that is, when we are anxiously going through the eyes at objects, is this object better, is that object better, then we are doing what Parani Swami did in his last moments. So that he anxiously went out through the eyes because the restraint was not natural. So therefore, Bhagavan is saying, by breath observation, restrain the outgoing consciousness which is dividing into the 5 jnanendriyas and going out, bring them all in, restrain them, and then don't keep quiet there, because it may still go after the subtle thoughts. From there, you start doing ekachintana. How is that? with the mind that has come to manolaya. That is, Ubayarodane layagatam punar bhavati lomrutam pranabandhana lina manasam ekachintana nashametya daha. Pranabandhana lina manasam. With that manolaya sthiti, which has been brought about by pranabandhana, now with that manolaya, you come to ekachintana. Ekachintana is ananya bhakti, is only self-attention, is who am I? Even to think of God as apart from me, as Ramana, Rama or Krishna, that is Anya Bhakti. The Atma Vichara is Ananya Bhakti or Ekachintana. Ekachintana Nashametya Daha. So that is what is said in these verses. with that manolaya which is obtained by restraining the breath in the chest, realize the limitation free being consciousness by keenly inquiring in the heart. What is to be realized? What is to be realized is the limitations free being consciousness, the sadbhava sustiti. That is ಭಾವ ಬಲದಿಂದ ಭಾವನಾತೀತ ಸದ್ಭಾವತ್ತಿರುತ್ತಲೇ ಉಂದೀಪರ ಪರಭಕ್ತಿ ತತ್ವಂ ಉಂದೀಪರ. That is அந்நிய பாவத்தில் அவனகமாகும் அனநிய பாவமே உந்தீப்பர, அனைத்திலும் உத்தமம் உந்தீப்பர, பாவபலத்தினால் பாவனாதீத சத்பாவம். So where we have to abide, whenever a thought arises, that is a bhavana. That arises only when you are a bhavana, when you are an I thought. So from that attention chasing the thought, one has to withdraw the attention and fix it on who am I. When the attention is turned on oneself, then one's thought nature goes. The thought nature exists only when you are attending to something else. When you are attending to yourself, you get the divine nature. You get the divine nature of Paramatman, who doesn't know anything other than himself. So with that manolaya, what we have to do, we have to come to being consciousness. Being consciousness is sadbhava. Now that thought has arisen. When my daughter had come this time for Girivalam, so I was asking her, see that we are all doing self-enquiry, are you also practicing self-enquiry? So she was saying, yes, I do practice self-enquiry, having been exposed to Bhakti of Bhagavan. I have been doing self-enquiry. This was in Girivalam. But when I go there, I don't get anything. There is only a blank. I don't get any answer when I do who am I. So in Arunachala's presence, we could share that are you not there? Even though there is no answer, are you not there? So the bhavanas are not there. Neither the question nor the answer is there. But have you become non-existent? No, you are there. That is something which you yourself cannot lose. So get rid of that which can be taken away or that which can be lost, and that which cannot be taken away and that which cannot be lost will remain. That is sadbhava sustiti. That is being consciousness. So with the manolaya got from breath observation, one should go to bhavanatita sadbhava sustiti. That is that sadbhava, that I am free of all thoughts. When thoughts arise, inquire for whom, put attention on yourself. The self-attending I is of a totally different nature to the other attending I. The other attending I is Jiva. The self-attending I is with effort the sadbhava sustiti. That I am, and there is no bhavana on which I am dependent. With effort, when we practice this being consciousness, the vasanas getting eroded and erased, and the ego getting diminutive and finally erased, one is able to abide effortlessly in that being consciousness. But for that, the process Bhagavan gives is withdraw the 5 splitting way in which consciousness goes through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch. Withdraw them by what? By observing the breath. Then with that manolaya, start inquiring for whom is this thought. So let's practice Atma Ucharan for the next 10 minutes. Ujjalji will be able to help us out with the time. I can.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang by taking the second verse selected for us, 959. We find this in the segment Experience of the Truth, Conscious Sleep. The subheading is Conscious Sleep. Experience of the Truth, Conscious Sleep. Verse 959. You who are trapped in the powerful snare of the world, who are pierced by the sharp arrows of intense suffering, who are extremely frightened and agitated, and who are wandering in search of the wealth of supreme bliss, you should know that the sleep in which there is no loss of consciousness is indeed the happiness that never ends. You who are trapped in the powerful snare of the world. The world seems to be like a trap set for us, that something or the other seems to be after us, till we realize that we are the consciousness and those events are interpreted by us. Bhagavan says to a devotee who has darshan of Bhagavan, and the devotee says, "Oh, I am so happy I have had your darshan." Bhagavan asks him, "Why don't you say that you gave me darshan?" That means the very way we look at the world is the snare. That we feel the way we look at it is the only way in which you can look at the world. Whereas the same thing can be looked at from various dimensions. And that itself should show that that thing which can be talked of in various ways cannot be the real happiness. There is a philosopher who says that I have something in me that can convert poverty into riches. That means there is something in me, the consciousness, which can convert the poverty in the world to be absolute richness. That is the freedom from the necessity to manage things is found by the sages. So they don't keep any stuff, money or property near them. That poverty is absolute freedom for them. So if that ability is there inside us, therefore we are allowing the world to ensnare us. So you who are trapped in the powerful snare of the world, till when we will be trapped, until we realize that it is we who are looking at it in a particular way and allowing ourselves to be ensnared, who are pierced by the sharp arrows of intense suffering. For long years, we have built a good reputation, and somebody talks ill of us, somebody whom we value talks ill of us, it pierces very deeply. Till when? Till you understand that they cannot touch the consciousness. The words cannot touch the consciousness inside unless it is allowed. You who are pierced by the sharp arrows of intense suffering, who are extremely frightened and agitated, and who are wandering in search of the wealth of supreme bliss. Whether we know it or not, we are actually in search of the wealth of supreme bliss. Instead of knowing that, we may be running after objective material wealth or objective knowledge-based wealth, which both disappear in deep sleep, which both go away in that particular state. Therefore, you should know that the sleep in which there is no loss of consciousness is indeed the happiness that never ends. Whenever we identify with an object of this world by calling this body as I and search another point B where we will be better off, then see, so far as the enjoyer is limited, the enjoyed will also be limited only. So far as the experiencer is limited, that which is experienced will also be limited only. Therefore, though temporarily we may have the laya, how safe I am, then when it vanishes every day in deep sleep. So when it vanishes otherwise, then we get a hollow feeling here. Oh, that which I had valued and held on so tightly, that is not there now. Now, the verse is saying, therefore, from your consciousness, remove all those objects. Get rid of all those objects. What was the earlier verse saying? You get rid of the sensory objects by unifying the consciousness from 5 divisions into one by observing the breath. The same consciousness is only determining the world by going through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch. The world appears Ulagaim Pulangal Uruveru Andru, Bhagavan says. The world is nothing but the form of the 5 senses. So when you withdraw the 5 senses, the world and its impact on you drops off. So whatever ensnarement it had, whatever deep pains it could give, it all drops when you do this simple act. Simple act of what? Of observing the breath. Then why don't we, as soon as we start observing breath, get this habit of being free of the snares of the world? Because that has not become natural. That much interned nature has not become natural. The habits are still there. The eyes all suddenly goes out. The ear hears something, and it takes that to be some real solution to our problems and gets fooled. Whereas now Bhagavan says, withdraw those 5 into 1 and then remove the objects from the consciousness. When we remove the objects from the consciousness with Atma Vichara, we found earlier, we come to the Bhavanatita Sadbhava. That means no bhavanas, no objects are there, but our existence is there. So therefore, that is called as existence consciousness or conscious sleep. The consciousness has not gone, but the objects that were dividing the consciousness, the divisions could be past, present, future. The divisions could be he, she, I, you, they, and I. These divisions are all gone once we get rid of them with Atma Vichara. Now, in that conscious sleep is the limitless happiness. The no loss of consciousness, sleep. So the consciousness is there. How to go to sleep consciously? What was there? The nature of sleep was there were no objects there. So now get rid of the objects. When the mind wants to run after a thought, hold it back. For whom is this thought? The thought is for me. Who am I? You still the I, then we are in conscious sleep. Another way to look at this is our experiences are divided between primarily as waking state and sleep state. In between, there is a mixture called dream. Let's for the moment keep it as, if you get rid of the division as waking and sleep, you will get rid of the dream also. Let us keep it like that. The primary division is waking state is there and sleep is there. In waking state, we are so active that if we get that, if we do this, if we become that, then all that is gone in sleep. Then again you wake up, again all those activities, and then going off to sleep where none of that is present. So our life The conscious life objectively seems to be divided into these two prisons. One is the waking state prison. You get rid of that, go into sleep prison. Why it is sleep prison? Because it is also limited. You cannot sleep indefinitely. That's not possible. It necessarily alternates with waking state, Bhagavan says. So what we are going to do in conscious sleep, we are going to get rid of that division. We are going to make them as one. How to make them as one? Keep the consciousness of the waking state, bring the no object state of the deep sleep, get rid of the objects. Then the division as waking and sleep is gone, because there is no thought which arises there to say, I am in waking. When somebody would say to Bhagavan, what is sleep? Bhagavan would say, see if you are in the waking state now. Only when you feel trapped in the waking state, you will feel sleep is somewhere else. I don't know what is sleep. Whereas, if you inquire for whom is this waking state and be still with freedom from all objects, then you are bringing deep sleep here itself. You are going beyond the division in the objective space as waking state and sleep state. And therefore, that conscious sleep, that sleep in which consciousness is not lost, is the never ending happiness. Never ending because the concept of time is also not there. The concept of time is also part of the waking state and objects. In deep sleep, do you have feeling of time? Only after you get up, you tell that I must have slept for so many hours. But during sleep, there was no such thought. Therefore, when you get rid of bhavanas, the bhavana of time and space are also got rid of in self-attention. That is why that is called as the happiness that never ends. So, to practice that happiness that never ends with effort, we do self-enquiry. We still the I by doing who am I? And keep doing it. The vasanas pertaining to waking state and sleep, when they vanish, then naturally one is abiding in that happiness which is ever present. So let us practice that ever present happiness, or happiness that is beyond time and space, by practicing Atma Ucharam for the next 10 minutes. Ujjwalji, you will be able to help us out.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. May I request Dileep ji to give us the summing of remarks. Namo Ramana sir.
Namo Ramana sir. Very beautiful two verses, which gives the subtle difference of how we get caught in the snare of the world or of the objects and miss out the bliss of the self. Nandakumar ji very wonderfully explained that incident which took place between him and his daughter during the Girivalan, wherein she was very clearly able to explain the state of the Manolaya, wherein the inquiry has taken her deep into that silence, but still, since it's object oriented, it's turned outward looking for some object, some solution, and therefore there is this a sense of a loss of bliss, even though it has become quiet, the mind has become quiet. And how Arunachala enabled Nandakumar ji to ask, to inquire who is experiencing that state. So the inquiry, as Bhagavan says, is an ultimate tool to take us to that pure consciousness, the pure self that we are. So moment we put that question, then the same consciousness which was still caught in the snare for looking for an objective experience and was complaining or was sensing some loss of bliss, can suddenly recognize that it is free of even that then and there. And Nandakumarji beautifully said that which is free of any objective, that which is looking for the objective experience is the ego. But when that inquiry happens, when we drop all that objective experience and we remain as that pure consciousness that we are, the one, the I attending to itself, there is Ananya Bhakti, there is the bliss, that is the experience that we are looking for, or that is our real state. It was very beautifully brought out for us to understand the subtle difference between Manolaya and the Manonasha. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. May I request Pratnama and Vaibhavji to start the chanting.
नमो रमण भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि ॐ महासेन वंशेन जाताय नमः ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः ॐ गुरवे नमः ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः ॐ महोजसे नमः ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः ॐ कमनीय सुचारित्राय नमः ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः ॐ शोणाचलमहोल्लसिताय नवीनमानसाय नमः। ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः। ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्तळे लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः। ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः। ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः। ॐ तीव्राय नमः। ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः। ॐ इन्दुमौल्या पितृमते नमः। ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः। ॐ तपोमयाय नमः। ॐ उदासीनाय नमः। ॐ महायोगिने नमः। ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः। ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः। ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः। ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः। ॐ सवित्रे नमः। ॐ स्थिराय नमः। ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः। ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः। ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ चूर्णिकाखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्यनिधाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः। ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋचुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमृतविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्रीशोणाचलरुद्बोधस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभिन्देन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ वृक्षान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणाद्बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्थिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रिशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शूद्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ घोरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः। ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थानोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्याजलिं प्राप्यत देव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः ऋन्निष्ठस्वरधीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनासेकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नमः इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगिये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानंद पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शि नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಗಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय
ನಮೋ ರಮಣ ಅಕ್ಕ, ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. Happy Ramanavami. Namo Ramana to all. Namo Ramana Pratnama. Namo Ramana.